it's brilliant, and
Yes.
it's really good. I'm so glad that you come on the show because we've been talking about this for your subject for quite some time.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
it's good because last week I was on. There was a Qatar Sports Tech with a hackathon, and it was a tremendous experience. And what they do for people and that have got ideas, concepts, it was just brilliant. And one of the ideas was a brain app or a kind of one that helps you focus and trains your mind. So when I heard of this, I thought, I've got to get you on the show this week. I've just got to get you on the show. So everybody, this is Mike Nichols. Mike Nichols is going to be telling his story. So Mike, come on, don't keep everybody waiting. Tell us a bit about yourself and how your journey began.
Yeah, sure. And just speaking to Steve before we started this broadcast, I had to reflect on where my journey started and kind of highlight some of the major turning points or learning experiences, I guess. So for me, I started when I was 11 years old. I started secondary school, and I think I was lucky because my PE teacher at the time, he was the England under-17s basketball coach. So, we had an experienced coach there, and he had the skills, techniques, and the ability and hunger to help the young school kids get into basketball and grow as basketball players. And it was something different because, I tried football, and if I'm honest, I didn't like football because here in the UK, the weather's not that great. It's rainy and basketball was indoors. So I thought indoors or outdoors? Well, indoor sport. Let's go for the indoor sport. And I just took to basketball because it was a little bit different. And I soon learned that I had a gift for basketball. And I had a friend, we were both 11, we both started school, and he took to it as well. And from the age of 11, in the first year, we had a basketball tournament. And I remember he got put in the first team and I was in the second team. I remember thinking, well, this isn't right because I'm just as good as him. Why am I in the second team? And back then, I could never understand why that was. And then in time, the coach said, well, we needed someone to bring the second team up. So, looking at it from a different perspective, I understood I could bring something that the second team needed. So that's where it all started. And then from our third year at secondary school, we had trials for the north of England, well, the northwest, and then the north of England. So it was the different areas that competed. So you had the north, I think the southeast, southwest, and Midlands. So there was an inter-area tournament for we were third year, so I think it was under 13s. And I kept making the north of England team, and my friend kept making it to the England squad. And as though we're really good friends. And I was kind of a little bit jealous, a little bit envious that he was making it. So I wanted to improve and strive to improve. And in our fifth year, so this is the final year at high school in England, we actually won a national schools championship as well as a team. So the school I went to was Cannon Slade in Bolton. And the past 2 years, we'd made it to the last group stages. So this year, in the school finals, in the quarterfinals, we beat the previous year's winners. In the semi-finals, we beat the previous year's runners-up. So we were the underdogs. And I remember being down at half-time by 16 points. The coach had a word with us, and we turned it around, and we ended up winning the game by 2 points against Millfield, which is a powerhouse, from Somerset.
Yeah, Somerset. I was in the golf club in Farrington Gurney, which was just up the road.
Right.
Yeah.
So in terms of winning, that was, I think, our first experience of winning something, but overcoming adversity, because each year we'd grown and developed, and we were the underdogs. So we built an our experience. So that was our school championship. Going back to the northwest, north, and England teams. In my final year, I'd improved to an extent where I felt I deserved to be included in the England squad. So how it works at Lilleshall, after the tournaments happened, and we won that year as well, so we beat all the other teams. We beat the South East, South West, and Midlands. We won the competition. So all the players go into like an auditorium, and the coaches are at the front, and they call the names out of the players. I remember sitting there and I had this funny feeling in my stomach, and they were calling the names out, and they called all the names out, and they'd not called my name out. So I was sitting there thinking, something's wrong. There's been a mistake. And then one of the coaches said, and this year, we'd like to give a special mention to this player. We've seen him develop over the years. And then I started, is they talking about me? And they called my name. And I remember I was that excited. I just jumped over the chairs and ran to the front. And, the players were tapping me on my back and smiling. And I remember feeling, I've made it. This is it. I've made it. So that was kind of my first breakthrough moment in terms of playing on a bigger stage. And from there, the squad went down to Crystal Palace, which is in London. It's one of the venues, the training venues we used. And it was a 2-day training weekend. And from that weekend, they picked the team that would play in a tournament that was coming up. And I remember playing well. And I thought, I've got a good chance of making this. Was for the England under-17s team. And when they called their names out, they didn't call my name. But this time I had a different feeling. I wasn't feeling they've made a mistake, they're going to call my name. I just knew. And the person that they picked over me, in my opinion, I was better than them. And I actually went to the player and I said to him, rightly or wrongly, you've got my spot. Maybe that was through frustration or disappointment, but I did. And I think it was because I wanted the reason why. Why didn't I get picked when I deserved to be picked? And it turns out they wanted a 2-year development squad for the under-17 team, and I was only eligible for 1 year. That didn't make sense. And my coach kind of stuck up for me and said, you should at least give him one tournament, to see how he is. So again, disappointment. And the next year, it was a funny year. I think my age, I wasn't eligible for anything. And then the next year, I was eligible for the under-19s team. And again, we had training and there was a camp. And I remember one of my friends who'd been selected, he's a year older than me. And he said, Mike, they're going to invite you down to the training camp down in, I think it was maybe Gravesend, I think it was. And they're specifically mentioning your name. And back then, we communicated through writing letters. There was none of this social media stuff. So we were sending, we were pen pals, and I've still got the letters in my garage. And he wrote to me, they want you to come down to this training session. So I was excited, went down, again, played well. And they selected me to play in a tournament in Holland. And it was good because, I'd seen my team, my peers succeed on a high level, and now I was part of this. I was part of the England under-19s basketball team, and it was exciting because we went to Holland and we were playing against teams from Lithuania, France, Sweden, and you'd play different teams. And Lithuania back then, they were like a powerhouse of basketball. I mean, they still are a powerhouse of basketball, and I remember playing in that game, and I think we lost by maybe 20. And that goes to show how great they are as a basketball nation. But we ended up finishing second. I think we finished second in the tournament. And at the end of the tournament, they select the most valuable player of that age group. I remember a Lithuanian guy won the most valuable player, and then they called my name out as the second most valuable player of the whole tournament. So for that moment, I was the best player in England at under-19 level. And when I reflected on why I thought that was, I had a different approach. I'm only 5'7". I'm not a giant when it comes to basketball terms. I'm not the fastest. I'm not the strongest. So I had to take an approach that was very different to everyone else. So it was defense. I hustled. I brought an intensity. I communicated well. And I think a combination of those allowed me to improve my game to a level where my peers and other coaches identified me as a player worthy of becoming the second most valuable player of that tournament. So that's something that I was very proud of. And I thought, this is it. I'm going to have a career now in basketball, naively, in hindsight, because basketball in England is very, well, let's say the progression isn't that obvious. And there's a lot of factors that determine how successful you're going to be in basketball. And my second chance to play for England again, it coincided with a basketball camp I was attending in America.
Yep.
And I had already paid, well, my parents had paid for the camp, so I couldn't go to the training for the basketball camp for England. And even though I did well at this basketball camp in the States, and I got voted an all-star, which was one of the 10 best players at the camp, and the hope there was that they'd offer me a scholarship so I could play in the States. That didn't happen. So I came back to England, and I didn't play for England again. Again, there's different variables as to why that didn't happen. But I was competing at National League Division 1, which is the second tier in British basketball. And I started playing for that team when I was 17. And then when I was 23, so that's kind of 6 years development, we'd had a turnover of players. We'd had Americans come and go. And I'd become kind of a leader in that team now. And again, the league wanted to have the first All-Star game, which was delivered in Coventry back in '96. And each team, well, your peers would select you as an All-Star, and I was selected as an All-Star, which meant I was one of the 20 best players in that division. Excuse me. And I was privileged because I got to play with, some of the best players in that division. And during the game, I was playing well, and I ended up being the second highest scorer on the team. That wasn't my intention. It was just I was making the most of my opportunities. But I also brought a defensive element to the game, because defense is one of my strengths, my passions, really. If I can stop the better player on the team doing what they do best, then I can feel proud of myself, because I've taken away one of their strengths. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm using my abilities. And so in 1996, the team folded. None of the players knew what happened until word got out that the owner at the time had just taken the club down south somewhere. There was no team meetings. There was no suggestions that it was happening. It just happened. So I was left wondering what to do. And I think so we've got the National League, and then we've got local league, and the local league is quite a high standard as well. And some of my friends were playing at that level. So I kind of fell into the Bury team, which we dominated for 4 or 5 years, winning the title and winning the cup and just doing really well. The professional team at the time was the Manchester Giants. And this was a team that was well known on the stage. They had, high profile Americans playing for them, some good English players. And I think I tried out for a few weeks, but I knew, there were better players in front of me. They did offer me something on the under-23 team, but at the time, so I'm going back a bit now, I was playing for Bury, so I ignored that. So the Manchester Giants was an opportunity, but I realised I wasn't going to make that team. So, time moves on, life moves on, and I'm just looking at my notes because I'm looking at the chronological list of what happened. So in 2009, I decided to go back to university as a mature student to do sports development, because I had an opportunity when I was 18. And I always regretted not going to university. So the plan was to go to university, get my degree, and find a job in sports development. The year before that, I started a National League Division 4 team, because I believed, because we'd done well in the local league, it was time to step it up to the next level. So I looked at the resources, I looked at funding, I looked at the players, got the buy-in from players, looked at venues, and launched the National League Division 4 team. Now, at the time, I relied a lot on funding and players paying subs, because the higher of venues, and then you've got to pay court officials, referees, table officials. It came to a few £1,000s a year, so I relied on funding. When I went to university 2009, I handed the reins over to someone else. And the team kind of kept on going for a while, and then the team folded through lack of funding, because there was some misunderstanding on where the money was coming from. I was trying to hand over and say, you need to apply for this funding. I can't really help because I've got to focus on university. So maybe it was a misunderstanding that led to the club folding. So that's two very teams that have folded up to this point. So halfway through my university course, government said the majority of sports development courses will be cut. There won't be any funding for sport development courses. So I'm thinking, well, that's my plan out the window. What am I going to do now? And I'd always had a curiosity on how the mind works, why people are successful when other people aren't. And coincidentally, I walked into W.H. Smith's, which is a book seller in Bolton. And a book caught my eye, and it was called, you know what, I can't remember what it was called, but it was about NLP. And I read the book, and I thought, this is really interesting. I've kind of learned a little bit about myself here. So I contacted the author, just sent him an email. And he messaged me back saying, oh, I'm glad you like the book. And we had a couple of conversations which led to him being my mentor. And he was like a celebrity life coach at the time, and he still is. And as part of him being my mentor, I got to go on an NLP practitioner course, which was a week up in Scotland with 3 very brilliant people, including Steve Burns and Brian. Which I can't remember his name.
What is, just for people out there listening, what is NLP?
So, yeah, good question. So NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. So neuro being the brain, linguistic being the language that we use to interpret the world around us, and program being it's when things aren't working in a way that we desire, we can reprogram our thoughts. So how it works is an event can occur which leads to a thought, which leads to an emotion, which leads to behavior. So when you understand that recipe, when you're getting undesired outcomes, you can reverse engineer that process and bring it back to what thought you had. And your thoughts are so what we call submodalities. So thoughts are made up of visual, audio, kinesthetic, and then what we smell and what we hear and what we taste. But it's the visual, audio, and kinesthetic are the 3 main elements of NLP. So if you think about your favorite holiday, you'll create an image in your head of or a little video, and that will include how bright it is, how clear the image is, the sounds, whose voices are they, what emotions you're feeling there. So this all kind of creates your thoughts, and from your thoughts you'll feel an emotion. So when you're thinking of your favorite holiday destination, you create that thought, and because you are thinking of your favorite holiday destination, you're going to feel good within yourself. It's going to bring back happy memories, which your behavior then is just smiling and relaxing. So that's pretty much how NLP works. Now on a very different level, which will lead me up to the story about the basketball player. So I'd learned these techniques, and
I will. So all of your experiences, you've just gone through all of your experiences, right? And how those things where you've dealt with you didn't get picked for the team, why was it? I suppose you didn't realize until you got to this stage and you had a mentor with this guy, that you started to look at those feelings that you had so that you could implement it into your life right now, right?
Yes, that's a very good point, that, Steve. Yeah, I always thought I was a bit weird because I looked at life differently. So when I learned about NLP, I realized, oh, those thoughts aren't weird. It's just how we process things. So yeah, it gave me some context that I could, translate those thoughts into something tangible. So for me, that was very eye-opening.
And a lot of people this NLP, a lot of people they do it naturally anyway. There's a lot of people that have this natural ability to use NLP. Yeah, of course. And how and from your side, you've gone on, and the fascinating thing with you is that you've gone on this long story, this kind of long journey, and now all of a sudden you're paying back. It's like you've now developed into areas where everything, and this is what I keep on saying to it, everything seems to fall into place. And it's like, I know you're going to talk about, you're going to be talking about a basketball player and how you helped him. But it is kind of fascinating. So how, as all these experiences, because I don't think it's all down to NLP. I think it's your experience as well, and your life experience.
Yes.
That you implement and you can utilize. I'll let you carry on. You tell us about the basketball player.
Yeah, so the basketball player. So because I'd had such a great journey in basketball, I was known in the basketball community, so to speak. And I'm just looking at the year now. So this is around about 2012, 2013. There's a professional basketball player who was playing for the Manchester Giants. And I kind of knew him from a distance, and he wrote a column in the Manchester Evening News every week. And one week, and he put it on social media as well, and he was saying how he was frustrated that he'd lost his game. He was in a slump. And this player had played for England, and he was known as a scorer. And his frustrations came from he was only averaging about 5 points a game, and he couldn't understand why, and he didn't know what to do to get out of it. So I reached out to him and said, look, I've learned these techniques. Maybe it's something that can help you. So we agreed to have a conversation on the phone, and I'm going to talk about kind of mistaken beliefs, because when we go through life, when we're younger, we form these beliefs that help us make sense of the world around us. And these beliefs kind of drive us to act the way we act and believe in certain things. So on a very simple level, let's take the color red and blue. Red is a color that you interpret as being negative, it's disruptive, whereas blue gives you a sense of calm and positivity. But they're only colors. But you've created a belief that that's how red should be interpreted, and that's how blue should be interpreted. So going back to the basketball player, he'd create a mistaken belief that the coach had told him not to shoot. So we came to this because using NLP strategies and techniques, we kind of unpick his beliefs and values, and we kind of unlocked that was what the thought he created. So the mistaken belief was, it turns out, it could have been a misunderstanding, because the suggestion I gave him was, why would your coach tell you not to shoot the ball when you're one of the best players? So it's like, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So therefore, would it make sense for when you get the ball, he would want you to shoot, because as one of the better shooters on the team, you're going to help the team by shooting and scoring. Ah, right, okay. So this is called, in NLP, this is called reframing. So we reframe and reprogram his thinking from removing that mistaken belief and creating a new belief that will give him the confidence to act and behave in a different way. So the next game, he went out and scored 20 points and hit 100% from the field. And in his column, he said that's the first time in his career that's ever happened. So, the power of the mind, we're going to talk about it later, is very powerful. But when you're in a slump, you have to learn to do things and think things differently if you want to improve. Yeah,
and it's kind of, I suppose one of the I've promoted this all over social media, and one of the things that I've said is it all in the mind? Is it all in the mind? And we're talking about sports today, obviously, because of the sports podcast. But this can be used on any form. So it could be used in business. It could be used in personal life.
Of course.
It's fascinating, and it got me thinking. It's because I know, and I'm just going to ask you one question while I'm here. I've got Paul, and Paul is a doctor. He's into sports. He teaches sports. He was a professor at Loughborough University, and he said, who was a mentor that you had again?
Okay, so you can look him up. He's got a website, a guy called Ali Campbell. Now, when I heard this, I realised the lead singer of UB40 is called Ali Campbell as well. UB40 is a group from the 80s. It's not him. It's a different Ali Campbell.
Right. There we go. And Paul was one of the other reasons why we got you on the show, because Paul was explaining the other week that his best time in competition was, I think it was a 10.4 or something, right? And he said it was all to do with the mind, because when he wasn't in competitions, he would get something like 10-1 or something like this. So he said that it had such an effect on him. Now it's like, and then it got me thinking, and I was thinking to myself, hold on a second, is this just something that somebody's saying? But it's all over the world. You've got all the coaches looking up and saying that it's 10% physical and 90% the mind.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back a good few years and you look at the 4-minute mile, that barrier. If you look at the timeline of people trying to break that, it was only when Roger Bannister broke that 4-minute mile that suddenly lots of people began to break the 4-minute mile. It wasn't that they weren't physically able to. It was just the mindset was they created this limiting belief that 4 minutes, a mile, no, it's not possible. So, some of it is the self-talk or the inner voice that people use that create these limiting beliefs. So you have to have a kind of open mind and a desire to want to improve, for you to improve. Because like the basketball player, he was physically and technically able to play basketball. He'd represented England. He was a professional basketball player. And for some reason, well, we know the reason, because he misunderstood an instruction from his coach. And that's how simple it can be to limit someone's performance. Because let me talk about the relationship between a coach and a player, because players, they have this unwritten rule that you respect the coach because they are the coach. They are seen as the person there to guide you, to instruct you. So anything they say and do, you take on board. Whether you think that's right or wrong as a player, you assume that's what they want for you as a player, because they want to win as a coach. So the team wins because, coaching roles are very delicate. If you go through too many losses, you can get a lot of negativity from the fans, from social media, from the owners. So, he was physically and technically gifted. It was just his mind was blocking him from being the player he could be. So just by reframing his thoughts, we're able to allow him to look at the situation that happened, reframe it, create a new thought, which opened his mindset to saying, you know what, I can and I will give myself permission to play the best that I can. So yes, everyone has limiting beliefs. Think about your life, your business, sports. You behave in a way based on your experiences and who you've connected with, what you've read, who you've heard. And unless you have a desire to improve, you're going to kind of hit this glass ceiling. Yep. And it's until you have a shift of perception and a shift in understanding what's possible from having new concepts or perceptions put in front of you, you will continue to behave as you are doing. And like, the old saying is, you'll always get what you've got. If you do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got.
Yeah.
And that's so true. So if you want to improve, again, life, business, sports, you have to look at things from a different perspective and have an open mind to learning new strategies and techniques.
I think, because you were coming on the show today, I did some research, and there was something that I saw, and it was from the Sports Energy and Conscientious group, and what it says is that there was a part in there about saying that all the coaches out there, they'll look up and they'll say it's 10% physical, 10% physical, 90% mind. But then they go on to that and they say, okay, can you explain that to us? Can you explain how those, and not many coaches can explain it. There's not many that can actually then go through and follow it up. And it was staggering to see. Do you think that nowadays with this whole thing, this seems like it's a new era, this whole thing that you do, where you're talking to them and reprogramming things and get them to think differently?
Yeah, I mean, sports psychology has been around for a long time, and there's certain techniques and strategies that sports psychologists use, and NLP is slightly different in the sense it looks at a person's mind from a different perspective. So, it's trying to explain the mind. It only comes into fruition, I guess, when someone's struggling. Because if you're playing well, you've got no reason, you've got no desire to want to improve because you're doing well. So it's only when people are struggling or they've actually gone into a slump as the basketball player did, is when you can address it, because you don't suddenly lose your physical and technical ability overnight. It doesn't disappear. You've had a shift in your thinking. That's all that's happened. So that thinking can be interpreting a comment, a look. I mean, it can be as simple as a look. If you get a look from a coach or a teammate, you can interpret that in a way of, oh, he didn't like what I just did there, so I won't do that again. So you create a mistaken and limiting belief that just from a look, you interpret that to be a negative thing, and you're being criticized, and you don't want to be criticized as a player. So you stop doing that, even though the look they gave you wasn't related to how you interpreted it at all. So communication's a two-way thing. The message is sent, it's interpreted, and when that message isn't interpreted in the way it's desired, this is where these confusions and different thoughts start to happen and start to manifest. And until they're addressed, until they're brought to the consciousness and looked at and kind of really unpicked, the performance of an athlete will continue to struggle. Now, athletes and coaches, again, the relationship is very strange, because it's a player won't really go to a coach and say, how can I help the team? It very rarely happens. And a coach will rarely say to a player, right, you're acting like this, or you're behaving like this, you're playing like this, tell me what's happened, let's try and figure it out. Partly because they don't have time, partly because they're not trained, and partly because the focus is on winning. And if you think of professional football in the UK, I've spoken to quite a few former players and people who are involved in the game, and the focus is on winning. And if the team aren't winning, they look to drop the players that aren't competing and bring in new players, often spending millions of pounds. When, in my opinion, a conversation trying to unpick the mind of a player and then overcome it and let him perform to the best of his ability, sometimes that's all it can take. Because if you take, some players can be playing really well for one team, they come into a new team, and they're not performing at the same level, and you see it in the newspapers and social media. He's not worth the value that we've invested in them. He's not lost his physical and technical ability. He's just in a different environment. He's interpreting that in a different way that's limiting his potential. So these techniques can help a player understand what's going on in their head, but how to overcome those mental challenges. And I think there needs to be more of this in especially professional sports, because it's so competitive, but there's the issue of kind of mental well-being and mental health. And it's important to understand an athlete is a person first and an athlete second. If you treat the person right, if you put trust and faith and respect and confidence in that person, their performance as an athlete will increase. And there needs to be more, and that's kind of what I'm pushing as well. Look after the person, and the person will look after the athlete.
But that's like, you can put that into anything, right? If you look after your customer, you're never going to worry about. You're going to never worry about your till. And I used to say this. I'm 53. Look after your customer. You'll never worry about your till dinging. In the older days, you press the button and if you look after them, if you do coach them, because coaching is coaching. There's a technical side to it. But sometimes it's like it's the mental side of things that you can get the best out of people, because it's something, I don't know what it is. It's that. So, and again, it could be a smile, it could be an arm around the shoulder, it could be anything. And those are the times that I've raised my game. I look back and think and look at that. I've raised my game so much it's untrue.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's just having somebody that understands, and that's what I like about you. Now, going on from this, I want to get on to the fact that all of a sudden now you've used all these skills, you've got involved in this thing from your mentor, and now it's pushed you forward. Can you tell us about that you've now got involved in a basketball team, and you've actually put this stuff into practice?
Yeah, of course. So I've been involved in. So Bury has, kind of a strong tradition of basketball. We've actually, in the area, we've got a basketball player. He's a coach now, who used to play against Michael Jordan. So cool. I like that fact. Yeah, he used to play against Michael Jordan at college.
Yeah.
So basketball has a strong community, and over the years we've had we had the Bury Lobos, which turned into the Bury Wildcats. So I was part of both those teams, and then I brought back the Bury Blue Devils back in 2008, and then someone else brought back the Lancashire Spinners. And he did really well because he brought them from local league all the way up to Division 1. And they were in Division 1 up to the 2017-18 season, where he decided to take a step back. And then some people tried to kind of keep the club going, but they couldn't. They couldn't manage it. So I wanted to give back to the community. I wanted to kind of use all my skills and kind of step into this role. So it started off with a conversation with a couple of people, and one of the players said, "Right, I've got an idea to bring back basketball, and I've connected with a professional football player and someone else." So we're getting excited. So yeah, let's get on board. So something happened. It didn't work out, but we're still in a position where we've still got time to put a team in. So I was thinking, right, that's not worked out. But I have to do something because I can't sit back and let this happen because we've got too much talent, we've got too much support, and I need to do something. So I spoke to a couple more people. I said, "Look, what can you bring to the table? What can you add?" He said, one of them said, "Right, I know a lot of the players. I speak to a lot of the players. Great." And then the other person, "What can you bring?" "Well, I do the admin. I can do all the behind the scenes stuff." "Right. Let's put an application in and let's put a business plan together, because without a business plan, the club can't be sustainable, it can't be viable, and it's just going to fold just like all the other clubs have." So I put together a business plan, and as part of the business plan, I wanted to integrate some of the culture that I wanted to bring, because running this team would be very different how things have been done in the past. So we had to suggest that if you're going to play for us, you will have to pay. I mean, that's quite common. But in addition, we want to look after you as a person. So when we had the trial, and we had some really high caliber players come to the trial, but as part of the trial, they had to sign a form to say, should I be selected, I agree to pay so much a month and agree to these terms. So everyone knew where they stood from the offset. So there wasn't anything hidden. There was no hidden cost. There were no surprises. And as part of our business plan, this is what we had to do. So we had to recruit so many players to cover our costs. So the trial came, and there was one or two players who thought they were bigger than what we were trying to achieve. They had egos. So straight away we said, "Look, we recognise you're talented players, but you don't fit in with our culture. So thanks, but no thanks." As it turns out, because our connections and because the way we treat people in the past, we had some high caliber players turn up anyway. And going back to some of my connections, I was the assistant coach of the Manchester Giants maybe 4 years ago, and I'd coached some of the players who were now kind of not playing or competing at a lower level. So they came to the trial. So it ended up we had 5 former Manchester Giants players on our team, and we were just starting in National League Division 3. But because of the culture we created and because of the way we treated people, they felt this was the culture that they wanted to get involved in. So that was a testament to the way we presented that as the club. So when we started playing the game, we recruited a coach. He's done really well. Just before Corona hit us, we were leading the league, and we were uncatchable from a mathematical perspective. So the league looked at how they'd managed this, so we ended up winning the league, and we've been promoted to National League Division 2. So again, we're looking at creating a different model now, because we understand to be sustainable in the community, we have to engage more. And we have to find a way to raise more money. So we're looking at creating something called a community benefit society. I've taken advice from a football organisation that's going through the same process. for the same reasons that we are, that we want it to be sustainable, we want it to be community-led, and we want to see growth and use the skills and passion from our fans, because people have a lot to give when you're trying to create something special. And that's where we're at now. We're just waiting for this application to be put through. Once the application is being put through, then we can start raising awareness, getting members to subscribe to us, and then we've got to create a board of members, raise some money. So it's kind of step by step, but it's exciting. We're looking to change the way that basketball teams are run in this country, in the UK.
And that's all using all the skills from the mind side of things and installing all this stuff that you're talking about with your players.
Of course, yeah. I've had to challenge myself. I've had to step out of my comfort zone. I've had to learn things that I didn't know. But I want to improve. I've got desire and a need to improve, not just for me, but for the basketball community, but also for people in sports, athletes, coaches, leaders in sport. These are all techniques that I use and that I've learned to use, and I want to give back to other people who want to learn to improve. I'm actually speaking so there's Basketball England, which is the governing body here, and we've got a Northwest region. So I've created some resources and a kind of mentoring program for new coaches coming into the game, where they can access this for free and be mentored. Because what we've learned is, once you get your coaching qualification, you're kind of left to your own devices. So a new coach will kind of fall into being a coach based on their personality and their style and what they've seen other coaches do, and maybe what they've seen on YouTube. But there's techniques, such as the NLP techniques and other psychological techniques, and ways to communicate and build relationships that these coaches aren't taught during the courses that they learn, the coaching qualifications. Yeah. So there's a need for this, but it comes down to, as a coach, do you have a desire and need to improve and learn new techniques, and are you willing to then put these into action? Because as much as you see someone struggling, until they have a need or desire to want to improve, whatever you say, they won't take on board. They'll continue to be suffering, to be struggling. Yeah. And so as a kind of mental performance coach, I have to tell myself, I understand not everyone's ready to understand these new techniques, or at least have a curiosity about them, because some people aren't like that. They're just happy to crack on as they are. So I can't force these ideas onto people, even though I can see you'll really benefit from this, because it drains me as a person. And when I'm drained as a person, I can't be the best I can for other people who really deserve it.
It's such a and again, I do the sports podcast, but I also help mentor different business groups and different individuals, especially students. And it's so true. It's like you get to a certain stage and then they're left to their own devices, especially if they're starting up. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Steve, you froze for a minute then.
So they want to. What they want is they've got to want the help. If they want the help and they've got the desire, then people can help them. People like yourself can come in and give them an idea on how to get to that next level, and help others to get to the next level.
Of course, yeah. I mean, if you're someone who wants to get to that next level, and you're some kind of I think entrepreneurial leader, you can then take those techniques and show other people. But it is having that sustainable support. It's not good enough to come in for 1 or 2 weeks or a month, give them all the tools and say, right, there you go, you're off, you can do it now. It doesn't work like that. If you tell someone what to do, it's less, that person will follow. Whereas it's better for you to show the person and help them understand, this is how you do. Can I suggest you do it like this? So it becomes an intrinsic learning experience. And there's another saying that you can teach. I can't remember, but it's about fishing. If you can give a man a fish, he'll eat for so many days. Teach a man to fish, he'll live for a longer period of time. It's the same when it comes to coaching. it's not good enough just to give someone techniques and strategies. You have to show them how to use them, how to implement them, what that means to your thoughts, what it means to your behaviors, how it changes, the sensations you feel, the experiences you feel, the outcomes you feel and you experience. That's you changing your thoughts. And coaching and mentoring is when you're able to empower other people, and empower is a word that I like, because you're empowering someone to open their mind and learn new techniques, but also embrace them and take them on board as they're part of their personality to help them. So when the person feels empowered, they're more likely to be successful.
So I'm going to put you under the spotlight now. I do find the whole subject fascinating, and I know because I've seen it work so many times in the business world. So I know this would fly by. It's like we've been going for 45 minutes now. It's just
you're right. It has gone quick.
I told you. You did. We wouldn't worry about content. So I'm going to give you the spotlight to come to the end of the conclusion of the show. What advice would you give to anybody that wanted to change, whether that was in business, whether it was in sport, whether it was in what would be the first advice that you give them?
So, I mentioned, or you posted the 3 secrets that someone needs to improve. The first thing someone needs to improve is a desire or a need to improve. Without that, nothing will happen. The second thing is to have an open mind to learning new concepts and perspectives. Because if you don't have an open mind to learning, anything that's given to you, you'll just block off. You'll be defensive. You'll be like, well, I know what I'm doing. So you need an open mind to learn new concepts and perspectives. And the third thing is to have an ability to put those things into practice. And that's where the coaching comes in, because like anything, when you're trying something new, you're going to make mistakes. And unless you get feedback and reflective times to look at what's going wrong or what to adjust, you can continue to make mistakes, or self-doubt can creep in. And that's where the value of coaching comes in. It's that relationship of, okay, you've got a need and desire to improve. You're going to learn new concepts and techniques. Let's start implementing them. And I'm here to help support you. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I'm here for you to ask me questions. I'm here to listen to your ideas, your concerns, and things that you're going to do differently. And I'm here to guide and facilitate you. But this is all about you. This is you growing as a person. Yeah,
it's about the journey. And and I keep on saying this, it's about the journey. And that's where we used to look after 150 offices, and they used to then go into ownership in these offices. And just to get an extra 10, 15%, it was like creating a branding for them. It's like looking at their logo, looking at their business card. And then all of a sudden you could see these people growing with something very simple. It was so easy to do, and you saw the performance just go for the stars. You know what I mean? It was, and it's that positive. Your subject is fascinating. It is, and it's something for the coaches to look at too. And it's something that I'm considering right now, for the simple reason, I even at 53, I don't think I've learned everything. And it's like maybe there are new ways and different techniques to do. So this is perfect for coaches too, to learn these skills, right?
Of course, definitely. I mean, no one knows everything. You know what you know based on your experiences, and who you communicate with. And who you are today does not mean that your life can change. Who you are today based on your beliefs and values does not mean you can change. It does not mean you can improve, because what you've learned up to this point is who you are today in this moment. Yeah. The future has yet to be decided, so you can choose what that can look like. If again, it comes down, if you've got desire to improve, and you've kind of hit like a barrier, a wall, or you're just coasting, but you think, you know what, I want things to get better. You need to learn to change your thoughts, look at new perspectives, but have an open mind to embracing new things, because none of us know everything.
And I think that's, and I'm so pleased that we've come to nearly the end of the show now, because with this COVID and everything that everybody's had to deal with, this is the time to have new things, right? This is the time to to embrace what's coming next. And I think that those are the times that, and that's why I'm looking at this right now and thinking to myself, you know what, this for me is a new beginning. I've got to learn new skills. There's new things that I'm gonna have to embrace. Let's embrace them. Let's be open.
Of course, and I think what COVID's allowed us to do is to sit back and reflect and see where things do need improvement and what's working. And I'll quickly tell you a story. I completed an emotional intelligence course a few years ago with the intent to find out why I was such a good basketball player. So I had to do some research. I went around the Northwest filming 200 players. I had 1,000 clips to analyze, which took me a good few weeks to look at. Broke down some codes. So then from these codes, I basically understood that I was just really good at reading body language and facial expressions, which is why I could anticipate and which was why I was such a good defender. So I showed this to a couple of people, including a former GB player, a guy called Devon Bailey. You can look him up. He was at a basketball camp that I was working on. So I spent some time with him showing him, and he could see the value in it. I wanted to see if the techniques transferred into football. So I connected, via Skype, and found a female footballer in the States. She was also a psychologist and a coach. So we'd speak for an hour on the phone through Skype. I'd set her some homework, which would reflect. And after 6 weeks, she won her first ever MVP in 25 years of playing. And she could see the value that she started coaching her kids, these techniques. So, I have a passion for understanding myself, but also helping people understand there are different ways to looking at your situation right now. Coaching through Skype or through podcasts, it works. I kind of proved that to myself when I worked with the football player, because she was in America. I couldn't physically be with her and show her techniques. It was all done through videos and kind of online documents. I think it was maybe a Google document back then, and it was reflection. So it works. So people can embrace this way of communicating and learning, because it does. In my eyes, at least, it works.
And you still believe that 10% physical, 90%.
Of course, there's some variables. Some say 80, some say 20. But the reality is, people do not lose their physical and technical abilities overnight. However, they can be influenced. Their mind can be influenced overnight or in a split second, which will then affect their physical and technical performance.
Okay, and thank you so much for talking on this subject. But I've got one more before we finish, and that's what have you respected most of all that you've missed most of all during this COVID period?
Well, it's playing. I mean, I'm 46 now, and I still play recreationally, and it's the kind of the camaraderie you have with your teammates. It's the physical contact, and it's proving to myself that even at this age I can still compete at some level. But it's given me time to put my energies into different things as well. So connecting with you, Steve, is one. Coming up with other ideas on how I can get this information out to as many people as I can and help as many people as I can. And there's the government decide on when we go back to playing sports. But when it comes to well-being, sports is one of those things that can bring a bit of positive well-being to anyone. I've been out on my bike, which has been good for my. So I've been out in the rain, I've been out in the sun, so that's been good for my physical and mental well-being as well.
What a great way to end the show, and thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure, Steve.
If you want to get in contact with Mike, for me, LinkedIn is unbelievable. You've got to get on LinkedIn, because that's how we met and that's how we first conversed. It is just incredible. So go to Mike Nichols, and how else would they get in contact with you, Mike?
I've got a website, www.elitesportsminds23.org. So you can find some more information about there and the kind of work that I'm looking to do and that I do. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, as you say.
It's unbelievable, and I will share all those with everybody on our Facebook. You're you've got an incredible story, and I can't wait to work on the initiatives that we're planning at the moment. There's lots that are going to be happening, and I know that here in Qatar especially, there's going to be lots of people that can do with your services. So I look forward to that. I'm going to finish off by saying that I've got a wonderful guest tomorrow with me. She is one of the best chiropractors in Qatar. I'd say she probably is the best. Her name's Claire Oscar, and she's coming on tomorrow. She's an amazing lady. So come and listen to everything about backs and injuries and those type of things. So if you've got any questions, come and join us. I also want to finish, and I know this is very unprofessional, but it's my daughter's birthday today. And I want to wish her a happy birthday. I know she's going to be cringing, saying, Dad, what do you do that? But you never get old. I'm 53. My mother's saying, I'm proud of you, son. It's like, so you never get old.
Once a parent, always a parent.
Well, exactly. And that's the one thing. So it's a very special day for us today. And she makes me very proud because she's really focused on what she wants to do, and she's going into another part of her life that I'm so impressed with, so proud of. So yeah, happy birthday, Kirsty. I love you so much. So that's that one. But I just want to reflect on everybody. Listen, it is all in the mind, okay? Without a shadow of a doubt. For me, this COVID period has been one of the best periods in my life, and it's got me to do things that I probably wouldn't have done beforehand. One is activities. One for me, and I'm going to share it with others, is yoga. We're going to run a whole program on yoga very soon, but it's something that gets your mind straight. It's something that puts things, it makes you think about things in a different way. There are things that are important. There are things that you should just let them go. Okay, think about the focus on those things that you have the ability to change, and then you will change it. And I honestly believe, and I do believe, and this is something, Mike, you've explained very well today, is that you can do whatever you want to do, and you should have no fears whatsoever. You should just go and do it. And I know there's implications sometimes, and I don't want you to go out and kind of and put your whole life on risk. But don't be afraid of making changes, because that's the only time that you're going to improve. So keep on changing, keep on improving, and you can do whatever you want to do. Mike, thank you so much for today. It was a
pleasure, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Everybody, thanks for listening. See you tomorrow, same time, 2:15. We've got Claire on the show, and I'm telling you, she's going to be a great guest. So please, it's been fantastic having you all today. So see you again. Thank you very much, Mike. Thanks so much.